Well, Your Honor, I think this is outrageous. You're going forward without the prosecutor.
Yes, it's exactly what you just saw. Blake Lively's lawyer literally stormed out of court after some wild hidden bombshells got exposed.
Specifically told her on the phone not to cancel that appointment, that it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to be here for the decision, that's your...
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Blake Lively's attorney abruptly stormed out of the courtroom after shocking, previously hidden revelations were suddenly revealed. Like she couldn't even be honest with the one person paid to protect her story. And now, with Ryan's name tangled in the Diddy drama and Blake's courtroom stunt exploding into an attempted murder headline, her lawyer bailed before his own career went down in flames. So why are we suddenly talking about a federal trial involving Blake Lively? Because something massive happened behind the scenes that forced the court's hand. This case wasn't supposed to start until early 2026. It had been delayed, rescheduled, and carefully kept out of sight. But that changed the moment sealed evidence leaked to the media. Evidence so serious, it made a federal judge scrap all delays and order an immediate start. What kind of revelation could make the court panic? According to insiders, the judge didn't act alone. Higher authorities, including the Justice Department and the U.S. Attorney's Office, reportedly intervened, citing national interest and criminal exposure. Suddenly, this wasn't about celebrity drama. It was about potential criminal conduct demanding urgent attention. Reporters digging through a new court scheduling brief discovered something odd. Blake's team had requested several sealed hearings. Long before the leak occurred, private sessions closed even to some opposing lawyers. That's highly unusual and raised red flags, implying her side knew something damaging was coming and had tried to keep it hidden. Why move in secret if there was nothing to hide? Normally, before a trial, both sides attend an evidentiary hearing to decide what can be shown in court, but this one descended into chaos. The footage that sparked the crisis wasn't submitted by Blake's lawyers. It came from an external source, someone who shouldn't have had it but leaked it anyway, changing the entire direction of the case. If her team didn't present that video, were they trying to bury it? The shocks kept coming. The official witness list had been altered, with large sections blacked out, the kind of redaction usually reserved for whistleblowers or people in danger. Journalists immediately noticed. Who were they protecting? And from what? Many suspect. It's someone close to Blake, perhaps even a member of her inner circle. The timing of those edits suggests that whoever's being shielded might hold evidence capable of flipping the case entirely. Could Blake's most trusted confidant be preparing to testify against her? Once the case was pushed forward, everything accelerated. Witnesses were summoned early. Some withdrew citing safety fears, and the court tightened access to prevent leaks. Suddenly, this wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a crisis management operation disguised as a trial. Meanwhile, Blake's lead attorney, Gabriel, stayed silent, and that silence grew deafening. What does it mean when the lawyer leading the defense won't say a word while the walls close in? Because the truth is, this trial stopped being about Blake Lively alone. It became a question of how much power the wealthy have to manipulate the system, and what happens when someone powerful decides they've had enough. The court is watching now, the media is watching, and behind closed doors, someone who's been quiet for too long has finally chosen to speak. This isn't just about defamation or damage control anymore. It's about whether the entire legal process was tampered with. And if there really was a cover-up, how far will those involved go to keep it buried? That morning began like any other in the Los Angeles courtroom. Attorneys prepped their exhibits. The press whispered in the gallery. Then the prosecution stood, announcing what they called a clarifying exhibit. Most assumed it would be routine, maybe a few emails or time logs. But when the lights dimmed and the monitor flickered to life, every head in the room turned. The video that played stunned everyone, including Blake's own legal team. Time-stamped just days before her deposition, it showed Blake Lively meeting privately with none other than Justin Baldoni, the lead witness in her case. The setting wasn't public, and there were no attorneys or court officers present, just the two of them behind closed doors. Why would Blake secretly meet with the man she accused, the same man she'd sworn under oath she hadn't spoken to in years? That statement had been crafted to shield her from accusations of witness interference or testimony manipulation. But now, the footage told a completely different story. The moment the video began to play, the courtroom went still. No whispers, no movement, not even the sound of shifting papers. Every eye was locked on the screen. Blake's lead attorney, M. Gabriel, visibly tensed, sitting upright before hastily reaching for his notepad. He scribbled something, leaned over to whisper to his co-counsel, then stood pale and unsteady, stepping aside as though trying to process what he was seeing. What happens when your own lawyer realizes in real time that his client may have lied to him? This wasn't just awkward, it was potentially catastrophic. In legal terms, what that footage implied wasn't a minor slip-up. It was witness tampering, a federal offense. It didn't matter whether Blake intended to sway Baldoni's statements or was merely discussing the case informally. Any undisclosed private meeting between a party and a key witness is an immediate violation of court protocol. If Gabriel had known about it and failed to disclose it, he too could face sanctions or even criminal exposure. If he hadn't known, that meant Blake had withheld vital information from her own defense, effectively sabotaging her legal strategy. Either way, the courtroom had just witnessed a bomb detonate in slow motion, one capable of dismantling not just Blake's credibility, but her entire legal team's future. Just as the shock began to settle, the prosecution unveiled a second clip. This time it was a wider shot captured from a different angle, revealing something, or rather, someone, new. A man stood near the back of the restaurant, distant but clearly visible. He wasn't a random bystander or staff member. He carried a briefcase, handed Blake a folder, and according to the timestamps, he arrived and left alongside her. Within seconds, speculation exploded across the room and online. Who was he? A paralegal? A private investigator? Someone linked to her legal team? If he was affiliated with her attorneys, then this meeting might not have been a secret after all. It could have been prearranged, part of a strategy now unraveling in public view. The judge quickly called for a recess, but the courtroom was already in chaos. Reporters flooded the corridors, cameras flashing as legal analysts rushed to interpret what they'd just seen. Outside, Blake's fan base fractured. Some refused to believe she'd done anything wrong, while others demanded transparency and accountability. Inside, Gabriel appeared stricken, pacing the hall, muttering to clerks that the footage was never supposed to exist. According to insiders, he looked betrayed, shaken, and blindsided. His entire defense was collapsing under the weight of a secret his client had kept. But the drama didn't end there. That evening, a new storm broke. 2 major media outlets received an anonymous email from someone claiming to be a paralegal involved with the case. Attached were internal documents, memos, draft filings, and confidential planning notes. These weren't random leaks. They were deliberate, coordinated disclosures. And for the first time, it became clear that what was unfolding wasn't merely courtroom chaos. It was the unraveling of a cover-up far bigger than anyone had realized. The leaked documents painted a disturbing picture of coordination between Gabriel and Blake Lively's publicist, revealing an alarming level of crossover between public relations and legal strategy. One email, ominously titled Reputation, Extinction Scenarios, outline options, detailed potential ways to reshape public perception if the case took a negative turn. The communications made it clear that Blake's PR team wasn't just managing her image, they were actively participating in crafting her legal narrative. In fact, they had proposed specific language for her deposition designed to sidestep questions and prevent the court from flagging new or conflicting evidence. Why would a publicist be scripting legal testimony unless someone already knew the truth could be devastating? Another document, even more telling, exposed a private meeting that took place just 4 days before Blake's sworn statement. The attendee list included Gabriel, several high-level PR executives, and an unnamed strategic consultant. The calendar entries simply read, Strategy Dinner, off record. Insiders now suspect this gathering was where the group coordinated how to phrase Blake's responses, avoiding outright lies while artfully dodging details that might trigger the release of sealed footage or deeper questioning. One memo line stood out, avoid naming Justin, stick to unclear communication windows. Legal experts reviewing the documents were stunned, calling it a roadmap for deception. The fallout was immediate. Within 24 hours of the leak, prosecutors filed a new motion alleging conspiracy to mislead the court, a charge carrying severe implications. It suggested Blake and her legal team may have deliberately collaborated to construct false impressions within an active federal proceeding. If proven, Gabriel could face disbarment, and Blake might see her civil battle evolve into a criminal prosecution. Suddenly, the entire spectacle seemed less like a trial and more like the unraveling of a meticulously orchestrated cover-up. Legal commentators flooded the airwaves. A CNN analyst described it as legal sabotage disguised as PR strategy, while another noted that in most celebrity scandals, media manipulation rarely crosses into obstruction of justice. Yet here, that boundary appeared to have been completely obliterated. The very people who thought they could control the story were now being controlled by it. And then the final blow came. Prosecutors unearthed a signed document from Gabriel declaring that Blake had no recent or personal contact with Baldoni, a statement dated less than 48 hours after the now infamous video of them together was filmed. Whether he was aware of the footage or not, his signature might now become evidence against him. In the wake of these revelations, Blake's publicist refused to comment. Her legal team went silent, and sources claimed Gabriel stopped returning calls, not just from journalists, but even from his own partners. When the people hired to protect you suddenly withdraw, it's not damage control, it's self-preservation. The original lawsuit has now been buried beneath layers of deceit, manipulation, and a string of courtroom shocks that show no sign of ending. What began as a simple defamation case has spiraled into a full-blown legal disaster, threatening to end multiple careers under the crushing weight of a single lie. Even more alarming, sources inside the courthouse claim there's still more unreleased footage, clips that could expose additional secret meetings, handlers, and hidden manipulations. If those tapes surface, the fallout won't just be reputational. It'll be legal, personal, and permanent. The courtroom was already tense after the shocking video evidence aired, but what happened next took everyone by surprise. During what was meant to be a routine 15-minute recess, a brief pause to regroup and collect thoughts, everything collapsed. As lawyers and court staff stepped into the hallway, Blake Lively's lead attorney, Matt Gabriel, quietly vanished. He didn't step out for a call or consultation. He left the building entirely. Whispers started immediately. What could drive one of Hollywood's top defense lawyers to abandon his high-profile client in the middle of a federal trial? The answer, it turns out, came moments before the break. During cross-examination, prosecutors directly confronted Gabriel about withheld evidence, asking him bluntly, "Did your client hide it from you, or did you hide it from us?" The room fell into silence. Gabriel hesitated, stammered through a half-answer, then tried to deflect blame. But it failed. The judge, sensing chaos brewing, called for a recess. But Gabriel didn't wait for the next session. He closed his binder, muttered to his assistant, and walked out without saying a single word to Blake. If he truly had nothing to hide, why run? Minutes later, according to a courthouse clerk stationed near the judge's chambers, a heated confrontation erupted between Gabriel and Blake. The argument, described as explosive, ended with Gabriel allegedly telling her, "You set me up. You're toxic. I'm done." Witnesses said Blake stood frozen, trembling, clutching her phone as Gabriel stormed down the hallway. Whatever loyalty or trust remained between them shattered in that instant. Not in the courtroom, but in the corridor outside it. When the session reconvened, Gabriel was gone. The judge asked if the defense was ready to proceed, but Blake's second-chair attorney simply responded, "Lead counsel is unavailable." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Minutes later, Gabriel's formal withdrawal notice arrived via email, confirming that he had officially resigned as her attorney of record. In one decisive move, Blake Lively was left without legal representation in the middle of one of the most explosive trials of her career. For the next 48 hours, she had no one to speak for her, no counsel to guide her, and no defense to shield her from the storm she had created. A silence louder than any scandal Hollywood had ever seen. With no one speaking for her, no motions being filed, and no defense left to shield her, Blake Lively stood completely exposed. When your own lawyer abandons you in public, how do you survive what comes next? The court quickly appointed an emergency attorney to protect her basic rights. But the true shock came the next morning when the judge unsealed a handwritten affidavit that Matt Gabriel had filed just before walking out. It wasn't a resignation. It was a revelation. The document, signed and sworn under oath, immediately became the most explosive piece of evidence in the entire case. In it, Gabriel didn't just distance himself from Blake, he exposed her. The affidavit began with a bold accusation. Blake Lively had misled her own legal team. Gabriel wrote that he was completely unaware of her private meeting with Justin Baldoni and that Blake had deliberately withheld that information while preparing her deposition. He further claimed that members of her PR and media team had interfered in legal strategy, pressuring him to shape her testimony in ways that would protect her image, even if it meant suppressing the truth. He described feeling boxed in, professionally compromised, and ethically cornered. If Blake lied to her own attorney and the court, was anyone ever being told the truth? But Gabriel didn't stop there. He went on to allege that Blake's team had provided him with fabricated timeline memos, documents intended to prove her innocence but containing altered dates and omissions. He stated that those files were given to him already finalized, and that he only discovered their inaccuracy after the incriminating video was shown in court. "Had I known," he wrote, "I would have withdrawn from this case weeks earlier." Gabriel admitted he had trusted her team's materials in good faith, but now believed key evidence had been doctored. How deep does deception go when even the proof has been rewritten? In one of the affidavit's most striking lines, Gabriel declared, "I can no longer ethically represent a client who weaponizes the truth." The statement hit every media outlet within hours, sending shockwaves through both the legal and entertainment worlds. Lawyers rarely turn on their clients mid-trial, but Gabriel clearly wanted the record to show that he would not be complicit in what he now viewed as a deliberate manipulation of justice. His words didn't just end a partnership, they ignited a legal firestorm that could burn far beyond Blake Lively's courtroom. Matt Gabriel's decision to walk away from Blake Lively wasn't about fear of losing, it was about refusing to be complicit in what he described as systemic dishonesty. If Blake had weaponized the truth, what defense did she have left? Gabriel's sworn affidavit opened the door to two devastating legal threats: perjury and obstruction of justice. Perjury meant lying under oath, something prosecutors now suspected Blake had done multiple times during her deposition. Obstruction covered acts like concealing evidence or coaching witnesses. And if either charge was formally filed, Blake could face prison time. This was no longer speculation. The affidavit gave prosecutors enough material to start building a criminal case. If her own lawyer had just handed over the roadmap to her downfall, how could she possibly recover? Reporters immediately tried to reach Gabriel after the affidavit went public, but he refused interviews. His office issued a short statement confirming his resignation, citing ethical boundaries crossed without consent, and offered nothing further. Meanwhile, Blake's once vocal PR machine went dark. No interviews, no social media, no denials. That silence spoke louder than any statement could. To both the court and the public, it began to sound like guilt. When even your silence testifies against you, is it already too late to defend yourself? What began as a celebrity lawsuit had spiraled into a crisis of trust. The defense had collapsed, the plaintiff's credibility was in ruins, and the court was now sitting on evidence, some sealed, some leaked, that hinted the entire case might have been built on a foundation of managed deception. If Gabriel's claims proved even partly true, the fallout wouldn't end with Blake. It could sweep through her PR firm, legal advisors, and close associates, exposing one of the most calculated manipulations in Hollywood's legal history. When the people paid to protect you become the ones dismantling your story, what narrative is left to tell? Then came the final blow. Justin Baldoni, the man at the center of the controversy, entered the courtroom. Until then, he had been a name in filings, a witness with limited public comment, and an ambiguous connection to Blake. But once sworn in, his testimony changed everything. Calm, direct, and visibly emotional, Baldoni made it clear he wasn't there to protect anyone. He was there to tell the truth. And that truth shattered whatever defense Blake still had. He testified that weeks before the trial, Blake had personally reached out and begged him not to take the stand. According to him, she didn't just ask for silence, she offered him a private deal if he agreed to disappear quietly. No lawyers, no contracts, just a secret plea from one celebrity to another. In that single revelation, Blake's case went from fragile to finished. Justin Baldoni's testimony turned the courtroom into a pressure cooker of truth and fear. He stated that Blake Lively personally reached out to him before the trial, not to seek understanding, but to silence him. "She wanted my version of events buried," he said, his tone steady but heavy. Why would Blake offer a secret settlement if she had nothing to hide? Then came the revelation that stopped the entire room cold. After Baldoni refused her plea, he began receiving a series of threatening text messages from an unknown number. The messages told him to protect the brand and warned him to think of his family before making a mistake. At first, he ignored them, but when the third message mentioned his children by name, Baldoni went to the authorities. A forensic investigation traced the messages back to a burner phone, one linked to a shell company registered under Blake's PR firm. If this was an organized attempt to intimidate a witness, who else had been silenced behind the scenes? Baldoni's account carried the emotional weight of someone reliving trauma. He described sleepless nights, the fear of walking his kids to school, and installing cameras around his home. At one point, his voice cracked as he said, "No one should have to choose between telling the truth and protecting their family." The courtroom fell into an eerie silence. Even the judge paused to let the gravity settle. Baldoni didn't sound angry. He sounded drained, like a man finally unburdening years of fear. His words raised a chilling question. If he had stayed quiet, how many other lies would have remained untouched? Within hours, the outside world erupted. Every major outlet ran the story. From gossip columns to social media, one headline read, "Social media exploded with outrage, disbelief, and betrayal." Blake's supporters went silent while critics felt vindicated. The public narrative shifted overnight from a misunderstood celebrity under fire to a potential perpetrator of witness intimidation and manipulation. Just when it seemed the scandal couldn't escalate further, the judge made an extraordinary move, an immediate forensic review of Blake's phone records. That kind of order is almost unheard of in civil court, signaling how seriously the allegations were now being treated. Prosecutors confirmed they would examine call logs, deleted messages, and encrypted backups, anything that might connect Blake or her team to the burner phone used to threaten Baldoni. The message was clear. Fame could no longer insulate her from accountability. As the investigation deepened, new fears surfaced. What else could those records expose? The next morning, Blake entered court visibly tense, flanked by someone new. Her previous lawyer was gone, replaced by Victoria Chen, a powerhouse crisis litigator known for saving celebrities in freefall. Chen's reputation was built on precision, not sympathy, and her first move shocked everyone. Before any witness was called, she stood and requested a partial immunity deal for Blake. The courtroom froze. Immunity deals are rare, usually reserved for criminal defendants willing to cooperate in exchange for protection. The judge, visibly taken aback, asked Chen to explain. She responded calmly that her client was ready to correct the record, but needed legal safeguards to do so fully and honestly. That single statement changed everything. Blake's legal strategy was no longer about defense, it was about survival. If she was now negotiating with the court, who else was she prepared to expose in exchange for her freedom? The surprises didn't stop there. Chen addressed the court again, this time shifting focus to Blake's mental state. She claimed her client had been emotionally manipulated, overwhelmed by external pressures, and unable to make sound decisions during key stages of the case. Some observers saw this as a sincere explanation. Others called it a calculated PR maneuver to rebuild sympathy. Either way, the narrative had changed again. Was Blake finally ready to tell the truth, or simply rewriting her story to avoid prison? Then, in what felt like a strategic counterstrike, Chen subtly redirected blame toward Matt Gabriel, Blake's former attorney. Without naming him directly, she suggested that previous counsel had failed in objectivity, neutrality, and professional duty, implying personal motives had influenced his damning affidavit. That single insinuation reignited the legal war, setting the stage for an affidavit battle that could tear apart both sides. If Blake was preparing to throw Gabriel under the bus to save herself, how long before he struck back harder? Now, Blake Lively stands at the center of a real-life drama no Hollywood screenwriter could craft. Multiple civil suits remain unresolved. A criminal investigation is taking shape. Her former lawyer has turned into her potential adversary. Her new counsel is negotiating immunity while prosecutors comb through her digital life for evidence of threats, lies, and tampering. The glittering facade of celebrity has dissolved, replaced by the cold glare of legal reality. What began as a defamation dispute has become a high-stakes fight for truth, power, and survival. And as more witnesses prepare to take the stand, one question echoes louder than ever. How much more of the story is Blake still hiding?